Firstly, can everyone hear me? I'm usually fairly loud, so the microphone's going to help a little bit. Right, so as he said, I'm going to talk about AI and how to practically use that in the pool industry. And the reason why I'm talking about AI is because it's everywhere. The discussion around AI is constant. You turn on the TV and it's there in some way, shape or form. This was my Google News yesterday, and you can see this AI is just popping up everywhere. Now, depending on what you listen to, AI can be one of two things. It can either be the best thing in the world, the panacea to solve all world problems. We're never going to have to work again because computers are going to do it all. Or, the other side of that, it's going to kill everybody. And no one's going to survive, and the Terminator's going to come, and Skynet and all that kind of stuff. We've all seen the movies. Now, I'm not going to discuss any of those things because they're above my pay grade, and we can all have our own opinions on whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is here. What I'm going to try to do is remove some of that hype, give you some practical examples, and remove lots of jargon that's around. Because, as we know, any new industry, new innovation, there's lots of buzzwords, there's always a bit of a bubble popping around, and that doesn't really help anyone actually implement AI. Because, you know, if you get lost in the buzzwords, you don't actually know where to move. So, I'm assuming everyone here has used AI in some way, shape or form. Am I correct? Everyone's used something? Does anybody recognize any of these logos? Go on. Anyone recognize this one? This is probably the most common one. So that's OpenAI, and they own ChatGPT. And that's like the first sort of mainstream system that was out there that's kind of got the ball rolling. However, as we can see, there's an actual plethora of systems out there that do multitude of tasks. Some good, some bad, and you need to know what tool to use for the right application. So there we go. So what is AI? You know, you've got these terms that are banded around: machine learning, large language models, neural networks, GPUs, generative AI, and algorithms. Now, each of these is a degree in and of itself, but to be honest, most people don't need to know nothing about any of these. To actually implement AI, these things just get in the way. And what isn't AI? You know, best way I can describe AI is a tool, as I said previously. Well, if you're good at your job, AI will make you better at your job. However, if you're a bit rubbish at your job, AI will just make you shit at your job faster. You need to understand what you're doing to implement AI correctly. A great example, I was creating an Excel sheet that would kind of calculate pipe sizes for me, so I wanted to do it myself. And I asked ChatGPT and I said, could you help me create this formula that looks at the flow rates, the maximum flow rate that is on this particular pipe, and you know the velocities that it's allowed under PUTAG, and these are the pipe sizes available. Can you create a formula that would spit me out the answer to that? And it's like, yeah, of course I can do that. So I dumped in the formula, and it was, AI is very confident in whatever it produces. So it's like, yeah, that's 100% correct. Put it in, didn't work. Did not work. So I'm like, why does this not work? It's giving me the wrong answer. Right, oh, okay, well, try this, change this, and this will definitely work, 100% this will work. Put it in, didn't work. So I'm going back and forth with a computer for like 2 hours at this point, getting really pissed off. And because obviously I've done the maths in front of me, so I understand what the answer is. And I'm not understanding where the formula's going wrong. But every time I tell it there's an issue, it's so confident in telling me that this is the correct answer. If I didn't know what I was doing, I would be still calculating pipe sizes completely incorrectly because I'm assuming that the machine's got it right. It isn't. So while AI is a tool, you need to know what you're doing. You need to have a fundamental understanding of what you're actually doing for it to function correctly. Because I said, if you don't, you'll just be shit at your job faster, which is quite impressive. So what is the opportunity? Everybody talks about AI as being the future and everyone should implement it and it should be done now. But why? And these are the things that pop out into my head. You know, you can be more efficient, which means you save time. And obviously, everyone's really busy, doing 1,000,001 things. Saving time and being more efficient is obviously a bonus. If done correctly, it can make you more accurate. And you can be more accurate consistently because you can take out that level of human error. From the business side of things, you're able to generate more leads and hopefully convert them into more sales because you've streamlined certain things. You're able to reach more people because you can, again, automate certain processes to go out to clients. And again, internally and externally, you can communicate better. Communication is key, and bad communication loses money. If you can communicate better, always a bonus. This is an example of a project that I'm actually working on with a company here, and this is the cost of the benefit cost for implementing AI. So this company, 5 employees, they do 20 sort of searches via their PDF documentation every single day. So 253 business days, and it's about £30 an hour. So in a year, that's costing them almost £40,000 if each search is taking about 3 minutes. And 3 minutes is not a long time to find your PDF, read the entire thing, find the piece of information that you want. However, with the tool that we've created, I've got that down to 30 seconds. Now that's saving them £30,000 a year just on that time. And what could you do with that? That's a massive saving, 211 hours approximately. You could be doing something far more valuable. So there's not only the time saving, but there's the opportunity cost for doing something else. So here I've got some easy wins, some tools that you can get off the shelf. Because the way I look at AI in 2 forms is the on-the-shelf stuff that's just, relatively basic, but it will provide you with some level of benefit. And then you've got the more complicated stuff that's going to take longer to invest in, but actually at the same token will provide you more value. So you've got a system called Claude. Now, I do apologize. All these AI companies have terrible names. So that will come up again and again and again and again. So this is called Claude, and it's a portable AI recorder that you can take to site meetings, client meetings, main contractor meetings, wherever. And it also has a desktop application as well. And it will listen to the entire conversation, understand what's being discussed, transcribe it all, give you notes and to-do lists. So that saves you time when you're on site, speaking to clients. You don't have to sit there and take notes yourself or hire a secretary to do that. It does it for you. And it's actually pretty good. It even gets my accent, so I'm quite impressed with that. Fireflies, again, is something very similar, but that's not a portable device. So that's an application on Chrome. So that's not as flexible in some areas because I can't take it to site. I have to go on my phone and open an application, but it's still very, very good. Grammarly, I would imagine most people have heard of. And while I don't particularly like Grammarly because it makes everyone sound the same, if you give that to Dickens would be really boring because it kind of churns out the same quality of email. But if you're writing emails or proposals and you want them to sound professional and understandable and coherent, and that's maybe not your best skill, it's a great tool to use, and it's dirt cheap. You've got Notion, which is a sort of internal knowledge system that uses AI to understand better the information you've got on there and guide you and help you store that better. Obviously, we've got ChatGPT, which again, no one needs an introduction to that. However, if you have the paid version, you can have a thing called custom GBTs and custom projects. Has anyone heard of custom GBTs or projects? So this, again, is the paid version, but essentially you get your own little model that you can train up on doing a certain task. So I have one on writing blog posts. Now, instead of going to a fresh message board every single time, chat every single time, you're able to train it on what you want it to do. So with, for example, blog posts, you tell it optimize for SEO, you give it specific rules, you say British English, no more than 150 characters, whatever it may be. Every single time it produces something, it will follow the exact same rules. So you don't have to keep telling it the same thing over and over and over again, which is really valuable. But again, it's a relatively easy thing to implement. So let's go to the next step and find something that's a bit more complicated. And this includes things like automations and workflows, AI agents, vibe coding, RAG and vector databases. Now, I'm not going to go into details about what each one of these are, because that's above my pay grade. I've got people that are far better at that can do that. But these are all tools that you should potentially look into that would enable you to go to that next step. And I'll give you some examples of what I've created using these that, again, you can potentially bring into your business in some way, shape, or form. So this one is a communication system between engineers on site and the main office. And the reason why I created this is I was chatting to an engineer of mine. He was on a particular project. And he texted me something via WhatsApp. And bless him, he's dyslexic as all, and I couldn't tell a word he'd written. It like a chicken had walked all over his phone. I couldn't tell anything. So I said, Gareth, send me a voice note. I can understand what you're talking about. So he did. But then that voice note gets lost. It gets lost in the multitude of voice notes that he sends me. So I'm like, well, this needs to be cleaned up. And unfortunately, he likes to do project management via WhatsApp, so it's not the best. With this thing that I've created, it takes the WhatsApp messages, the voice notes, the photographs, the videos that he sends me. It understands what's being said, so in the voice note, it'll download it, listen to it, transcribe it, take notes. It will then store that in the correct folder with the correct file name and message the staff in the office and say, this has just happened. So then if you're on the phone and your engineer's send you a voice note but you're busy, you see it pop up on your screen. He's like, right, okay, Gareth's X, Y, Z, right, this has happened. Same with the photographs. Photographs on site are really useful, and we used to communicate them via WhatsApp, and they would just get lost after a while, or staff would delete them. What this does is takes the photograph, understands what site that is, downloads it, creates a folder specifically for those photographs in the correct project, gives it the correct name, and files it in the correct file. So I can find those again and again and again and again without having to dig through tons of WhatsApp. That's massively helpful for referring back to this stuff later. A bit more complicated to build, but the value is definitely there. The next one is actually the first tool I ever made, and I was just messing around, and I still use it to this day. It's a bit of a pool design chatbot. So with this, I've essentially fed it, I've put into a database all of the ISPE, the SPATEX, the ATACP, Swim England, building regs, all onto a database. And then with that database, I can communicate via a custom GPT and say, what's the turnover rate for a hydrotherapy pool, for a commercial hydrotherapy pool? What should it be? If I've forgotten it or if I'm on site, boom, it gives me the answer. So I don't have to go back and constantly get the PewTag book out or get the ISPE book out. And if I'm on site and I don't have that information to hand, my memory's a bit of a sieve, this is a great tool to just provide me that information there and then. Similar, if I forgot once, what size balance tank I needed for this particular type of pool, asked the question, got the answer within 4 seconds. That's massively helpful when you need that information there and then on site. The next one is a bit more of a sales one, but it's a lead generation system that I've created. What this one does is specifically targets architects. And again, all these tools can be custom to you. These are just ones that I've created that work best for my business. So what this one does is I can ask it, find me 10 architects in the Leeds area. Go out to Google Maps, scrape 10 architects, find them all, get all the contact information, check the database of what I've already created and it's already filed and said, that one's already there, that one's already there, that one's already there. Not put them in. Put the other 7 in, as an example. Go out and find 3 more different ones, put it in the database, and then it'll tell me, it's like, I found you 10 new architects. But that could be M&E engineers, anything you want, housing developers, it could be anything that you want. But then on top of that, I've also built a secondary system that I've not put in this, that then takes the database, looks who I have and haven't emailed, and will automatically create a cold email based off what their website says. So if an architect specializes in commercial XYZ, it'll create me an email how I want it to. I've obviously given a decent prompt based off their website and what they're aiming to, what that architect firm specializes in. So then the email is specific to them and automatically sends it out and then updates the database and says, you've emailed these 10 architect firms. And I can go and I can look at the email and say, couldn't have written that better myself. But that saves me an absolute ton of time, and it has brought me in quite a few clients without having to do a whole bunch other than just tell it to work. The next one is something I use constantly. It's always running. an email organizer. I'm sure I'm not alone in getting an inbox that's completely bogged down with shit. Just every day, just constantly, stuff's coming in. And 90 to 80% of it is stuff that I don't need to answer right away. If I'm at a place like SPATEX or on site, I've got limited time to answer my emails. I want to answer the important emails now, and then when I've got a few hours spare, I'll go back through and I'll say, right, what's not so important, and I'll answer that one. But what this does is it reads the email, and it'll say, this one's a sales email from a supplier. Right, okay, that goes into that folder. This is from a client, that goes in that folder. This is a project email, it goes in that one. And then I can look and instantly see, so right, I've got 2 project emails, I've got 7 inbound marketing emails from LinkedIn or what have you. Right, I deal with those 2 and those ones can wait. I'm not searching through my inbox to try to find the important email. It does it for me. So I'm not wasting time, and then eventually I'll get round to answering LinkedIn or whatever it may be. Again, every day I use that, and it's really, really useful. Now this one's an interesting one. When everyone thinks about AI, I think one of the first things they think of is AI images, the images that it's created. And there is a lot of AI slop out there. Some of it's quite funny. And this is something that I'm tentative to put in, because sometimes it can be really good and sometimes it can be really bad. And obviously it needs to be correct. You don't want to be just producing slop left, right, and centre. But with the image generation, these 2 models, I think I used, what's it called? Well, Google's new system, what's it? Nano Banana. Again, stupid names, but they're all called something like this. So which one of these images do you think took longer to create? Which one took me longer to tell it what to do? Do you think this is the top one or the one on the bottom one? Right, I'm going to tell you anyway. So the top one, the prompt for that one was, what does it say? Woman in a swimming pool, outdoor swimming pool. And that's what it came up with. It just guessed, because obviously all AI is a guessing, a really, really good guessing engine. It's guessing what you want to see. Because I've given it such a small prompt, it's just guessed. Created a decent picture. That's not Yorkshire, so I can't really use that picture. I wish it was, but unfortunately it's definitely not Sheffield. Well, the bottom one, I could use that, but that's the prompt I needed to create to get that image. And that took a long time, because that arm gets really dodgy around about a certain angle, and you just can't use those images. So that I actually got ChatGPT to create me that prompt, but it still took me about half an hour. So this is why image generation sometimes is probably the most difficult thing. And again, this is the PDF search that I talked about earlier. And now, because of this, the company that I'm working with can just quickly ask it, you know, how many bags of sand do I need for, you know, a vision filter, 650 vision filter, whatever it may be. It can speak about the answer because it knows the data sheet. You don't have to remember it or go searching for it. The answer's there. I think that's pretty useful, to be honest. So that's most of what I want to talk about. And these are just a few tips and tricks that if you don't want to create anything, you just want to use the tools that are off the shelf, these are a few tips and tricks that will hopefully get you decent answers. You know, it's like good prompts. Good prompts are critical. The answer that you get out from the model is only as good as the prompt that you put in. If you just put in, you know, woman in a swimming pool, you will get anything. If you want something specific, you have to be very specific with the system. The models are overconfident. As I mentioned previously, the models are really overconfident and will tell you with 100% certainty that the answer it's giving you is correct. You have to know whether it is correct or not, because it will try and blag you and say, yeah, it's 100% correct. And if you point it out, it'll say, oh, you're right, you're so smart, but this is exactly the answer. You need to know, because it is overconfident. So again, always double check. Understand the limitations of the models that you're using. You know, some models are good for some things, some tools are good for other things. You need to understand that, for example, if you're going on a site, you're not going to use an impact driver for every install. There's going to be certain tools you use. You're not going to use an 1.5" fitting for everything. So again, it's the equivalent of that. You need to understand the tools that you're using and what they are and aren't good for. One thing to note is be careful with sensitive data. Don't be giving it a whole bunch of client data, because that model is not secure. And it will go off and it will go to the rest of the model. Unless you isolate it which was what we've done with the PDF version, even though there's no sensitive data. If you isolate it and make sure it doesn't have access to the internet, you can give it a bit more sensitive data because it's not going to go anywhere. But if that's an open model, that's really risky because that data may show up somewhere else. And clearly, if you put in client data in, addresses, bank details, that's a definite no-no. One thing with regards to text, if you're writing blogs, all it is guessing what you want to hear. It's a very good guessing machine, don't get me wrong, but it can just pinch something from someone's website and give it to you. You need to understand that it can plagiarize, so you need to tell it, for example, do not plagiarize. If you've taken this, change it X, Y, Z. And use a plagiarism checker. If you are creating blogs, plagiarism checker will find this stuff. Setting clear boundaries for what the model can and can't do. With the more complicated tools that I've shown, it has access to a full database of, for example, of architects or whatever it may be. If you don't tell it, don't change any of this. You're only allowed to do this one thing. It may just decide to have a complete wobbly and delete everything. That happened in a company in the US where they gave it access to its full code base, didn't set clear boundaries. An engineer said, oh, I'm having this problem with the code, can you solve it? The AI said, yeah, I can solve it, deleted everything, solved the problem. The problem no longer existed, but neither did any of the code base. So setting clear boundaries of what it can and can't do is critical, and that comes down to even if you're just asking it for pipe sizing. And one thing is, things move fast. So the tool that is, you want it to do X and you can't do it now, maybe 6 weeks later, half a year later, it'll be able to do it. When I got paid for ChatGPT, it was 3.5 that was the latest one. Now we're on 5.1, and that's only been a year and a half, and it can do so much more. So things do move very fast, so it's always something to keep an eye on. And that's it, that's me. Any questions?
Okay, I think we've all become AI experts now,
That's
haven't we?
what I like to hear.
But no, if anybody's got any questions, I'll come to you with the mic.
Do you think it will take over websites? Just put a name of a company in, and it will bring everything up about that company.
I don't see why not. In all fairness, the system that I've created does scrape full websites. So I ask it, research this company, it'll go out to the internet, find the website, download the entire thing, scrape it all, and give me a synopsis of whatever that company does, and then I can query that. So to a degree, that can already be done. And like with vibe coding, I can ask it, and I actually have done, create me a website for a high quality sauna company. 5 minutes later, full website created. I've got to host it, but that's job done. Software companies aren't taking on new software engineers. They're getting the creme de la creme of the top, but they're all using AI underneath them. So entry-level software company jobs, they don't exist anymore. So hope that answers your question.
Okay, have we got any other questions? So, Michael, have you got a stand here?
No, I'm just wandering around, but I'm here for the 3 days, so.
I was going to say, if you spend a bit of time over on the Institute stand, which is just over there, if you've got any other questions, maybe you'll come over and
By all means.
ask Michael later on. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.